Greetings and welcome to GatherVerse FATHOM Summit Day 2. We're here today to express fashion, art, technology, humanity, open source, and music. We're coming off the heels of a very successful day one, where we had several different speakers come and join and meet with us to explore with and share with us, not just via Spiga and Prada and Gucci, but to discuss what it means presently in the fashion industry at the intersection of humanity and technology. That's where GatherVerse meets at. We're so very happy to have all of you with us here today at GatherVerse.live and our other streaming platforms throughout our social media, including a huddled group at YouTube. We hold these summits as a way of expression and human amplification. We've had several of these, and we have several more coming. In fact, many more that are arriving. We find this critical and rather prudent to have these discussions because now is the time. We can't wait till tomorrow to where it comes knocking on our door, any given situation that arises under the subject matter of humanity itself, and we not do anything about it. Tomorrow it's too late to assemble, where today the availability has sway. And so we gather. We gather globally, gather around the world. We hear from different peoples of diverse perspectives. We hear from leaders, not just men. We hear from a different amount of people, not just technologists, not just artists, not just creatives. Every industry matters when it comes to expressing on a GatherVerse event. We don't go look for the most incredible speakers in the world. We also look for the hidden voices, the ones you never heard of, the ones you never heard from. At GatherVerse, come as you are. We welcome everyone, including our next guest, Charles, who comes to us from France. He has some incredible words to be able to share with us about music. Thank you for joining us. Will you share this with a neighbor, a friend, a colleague, a family member? And may our gather be well. And just with every event, there's always a technical difficulty or two. Our production team sorts that out. We apologize for that. It's going to happen. It happens. Welcome to the haunt. But as we go further and we talk about fashion and technology and music, one of the things that we explore about is the rise of these generative pre-trained transformers, GPT. And it's not just large language foundational models that are having great influence when it comes to fashion and music. We're also exploring different ways where it has influence when it comes to the metaverse and 54 other technologies that abide within the eco-habitat. Of the 54 technologies, we have 4 subsets per technology, rendering out the 270 plus technologies themselves. We tend to look at single variable equations because the market prevails and it tells us this is what's relevant when it comes to technology. But the reality is that there's more technologies that are arising and that are imminently on their way. Just as we've seen the prolific rise of NFTs, doesn't matter how you feel about them, or crypto assets, meme coins, altcoins, or other different digital currencies that are coming to market, running on layer one, layer two, on chain, off chain. We see these things happening when it comes to technology, but we also must understand that each technology that's presented is something that creates what we call a product. And that these products ultimately are not the technology itself because technologies are applied sciences. Why do we say that? Because when someone makes the asinine statement that the metaverse is dead, the metaverse is still being formulated. How could it be dead if it hasn't truly arrived? The most important thing that we have to think about in consideration of emerging technologies and on their way here is how do we access these technologies for the greater good of the world? How has technology completely arrived at its full frame and intentional value when even a third of the world isn't even connected to broadband and Wi-Fi? Our standards with Gather versus humanity first, accessibility, education, equality, community development, safety, privacy, wellness, and ethics for a reason. We hold these standards true is because we understand that without these core 8 standards that we have at this intersection of humanity and technology, then we do not have technology. We feel this a lot of ways in the same thing when it comes to art. The preservation of art is critically important to the success of technology itself. You can have art without technology, but you cannot have technology without art. And so when we talk and express about intersectionality, we must take in consideration that liberal arts and technology also meet at the intersection. They go hand in hand. The influence of art is really critically important. It's been a long forefront concern that as innovators and disruption, that good technology comes from great technology and great technology comes from even better technology. This is what we call the disrupt. And what happens is once this disruption takes place, this new technology, this product prevails. But what happens when the technology becomes more advanced than the technologist? I said this 3 years ago, and now that's come to pass in many ways. The technology has become so advanced, and the tempo and the cadence of technology has accelerated 100-fold, if not even more. How do we take grasp and hold of this? What do we do with this onslaught of artificial intelligence, generative pre-trained transformers that are severely disrupted to multiple industries, especially based on the theme of this event of Fathom, our artist community? And what about the preservation and sustainability of our artists? If we're going to listen to artificial intelligence music and rendered out films and movies, then what will we do about the artists that committed to delivering us art? And what of universal basic income? For those that say universal basic income is another form of welfare, you don't even know what universal basic income is in its totality because public sector has to still define it. These are serious, beyond talking points that we're talking about. And we're talking about this discussion now, today, because we feel that tomorrow's too late. And as I've been brought up to raise and understand that sometimes people just do not care until it comes knocking on their door. Our door's been open for some time with GatherVerse. We care today. We don't want to care just tomorrow. We don't want to care at the aftermath and the fallout has happened. I don't want to care about our artists when they have nothing left. Might we show some due diligence of consideration and common care today when it comes to our artistic community? Why in the world would I want to buy an Apple Vision Pro or a Meta 3 or any other HMD if I have nothing to experience it on? As much as we all may enjoy artificial intelligence in these generative pre-trained transformers, the reality is that AI is an extended reality of human intelligentsia. That means sensory it doesn't have, but humans do. I like my music with a little bit of humanity these days. How about you? We have a terrific panel that we've assembled together of brilliant minds, ones that I know that I admire, many of you. We see that many of you, once again, humbly, we're grateful to see that you've come to show up for day 2 on GatherVerse.live, where the majority of us assemble. Evidently, today, Fathom Summit, day 2, we are not alone. May our gather be well.
Hello, and welcome to day 2 of GatherVerse FATHOM Summit. I'm your host, Russell Bundy, and we've got an incredible panel with us today. So I'm literally just going to jump straight into this because what Christopher was saying there is, I can't even top what he's saying. So let's quickly just go around the table and just quickly, 30 seconds, introduce yourselves, and then we'll get straight into the discussion. So Angie, would you like to quickly introduce yourself? And we'll start with you. Angie, you haven't unmuted your microphone.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Russell. And I'm so glad to be part of this panel today. My name is Bonolo Angie, and I'm from the African Center for Generative AI. And basically, we are an organization that's looking to create a platform for generative AI in the African continent. We're bringing together the minds of humans and machines here in Africa. Thank you very much for having me.
That's amazing. Over to you, Stacy.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Christopher, for that amazing introduction. And hi, Russell and everyone. I'm Stacy Whittle. I'm the co-founder of Teatro de Corazon and a local actor here in Washington, D.C. We founded the Heart Theater with the belief that united and connected, we can change the world. So we do work in both virtual reality, but also live on stage. So I'm really happy to be part of this panel.
Thank you so much, Stacy. And over to you, Paul.
Good evening from Africa. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Paul Oyaki Modiga. I'm the CEO of Africa VR Campus and Center Technologies to grassroots Africa. We don't want to begin from the urban areas. We want to begin from the villages.
Over to you, Jens.
Hello, everyone. My heart is beating really strongly. This is so cool. It's really fantastic to be here with all of you. I'm a media artist. I've been diving into virtual reality since 2012, even a bit before with installation work. And I see how everything is going full circle now with artificial intelligence. It's the last piece of the cake in order to really dig in. And I'm saying that not from a consumerist position, hopefully from a producer and from a creator's perspective. And thrilled to be here.
Thanks very much, Jens. And over to you, Jared.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jared Arms, an AI artist at artwork.photo, which is an AI art platform created by childsextrafficking.org. I'm also a public speaker for childsextrafficking.org. So what we do is create AI and digital art to raise awareness around serious issues such as child sexual exploitation, child sex trafficking, and what we do is basically like teach kids in the community how to develop technology such as AI art, but overall we use the funds from our programs to try to help out like with missing teens or homeless children.
That's awesome, man. All right, we've got so much to talk about today, so let's just get straight into this. And the first question that I'm going to fire to all you guys is, how is AI shaping the art creation process? We'll start over with Jens, since you've been in the industry for a very long time, and also you can speak from a creative aspect. So what is your opinion on how AI is shaping the process of art creation?
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to open this up. This is an honor. AI can definitely expedite the creation process and enable artists to break free from conventional constraints, and it can lead to unprecedented artistic expressions if we tap into AI, that's for sure. Where I see a bit of trouble coming up is that people become more interested in or less interested in actually what the unique physical, psychological, and mythical configuration of human existence represents if we just tap into AI in order to create something or even getting inspired. I have the notion that the inspiration part is enhanced, but it will never replace human inspiration.
I 100% agree with that, and Angie is nodding her head there. So Angie, I'm going to pass over the same question over to you. Would you like to continue from what Jens was saying?
Yeah, I completely agree with Jens when he says that it will never replace, human inspiration. I see it as a tool basically that can be used by artists collaboratively in order to enhance that process of inspiration, because what it does for us is that the art is really inside of us. That's where art resides. And what AI can do for us is to help us to bring out the art that's within and basically make it a bit more tangible and visual, using tools such as DALL-E and Midjourney. When you are thinking in that inspiration stage and you want to create anything really, the possibilities are limitless. And when I tell Midjourney to create for me a pink cat with zebra stripes, that is something that's within me because of my experiences and the sensations that I've gone through, the things that I've seen. But when I use the AI tools, that brings that whole image to someone else to be able to see what it is that I'm visualizing within me. So I totally agree. It's a tool. It's an enhancement to our creative processes and to the process of making art, but it can never replace that unique ability that humans have to be able to create art and to be creative. Yeah.
I 100% agree. I mean, Midjourney is actually, I'm pretty sure, is like the second most popular AI tool used for art generation. So, yeah, I mean, I've tried out myself and I've created some crazy things. So, but it kind of leads me on to my next question though. In how can AI be used to generate art inside the metaverse? Because of course, it's a tool, an extension of your creation process, but how can the AI art be used inside the metaverse side? Is there like a different way in having to use that? I'm going to pass this question over to you, Stacy, because I think you might have some interesting opinions on this. So, what's your just your personal opinion on how AI is being used to generate art for the metaverse?
First of all, can I just step back for a second? Because I've done a poll of local artists here in Washington, D.C. And I think what Christopher said about access is so important before we even jump into the conversation, because what I'm finding is there's a a specific group of people who have kind of access and awareness and even analysis of these tools. And then there's this big swath of the creative community, like, I have no idea what this even means. Like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. And once again, it's going to be the select few who make a profit off the backs of the people in the industry. So I just wanted to say that I think it's very important that we bring awareness and access to communities that, like mine, creative communities that really just are incredibly afraid. You know, as an actor here in DC, in addition to running a company, it's already hard enough to make a living. So I think with art in the metaverse, first is defining what that means, right? What does it mean? And like, how do we get people to understand that it could actually be of benefit to people? So what we've done, and this is not in the metaverse, but in VR, is we have an actual music show in an art gallery, right? So what we could do to translate that into the metaverse is to actually have either AI art or art on the walls of your art gallery or your performance space, and then allow people to actually sell their art inside the metaverse. I mean, how amazing is that, right? You have a new way of making money off of your art. Now, what is art AI creation in terms of art? Well, I don't know if anyone listened to Carla Ortiz, who is a Puerto Rican artist who's made all kinds of digital art for like Doctor Strange. She's really afraid, right? She's saying that basically people are exploiting her and putting in like, create a piece of art like Carla Ortiz. And she's like, well, now what? So there's this whole aspect of this conversation about owning our data, owning this, and then giving people access. So, sorry, that was a long preamble. I think it's really amazing, right? I see it. I love it. I use AI all the time. And I imagine like the positive is like seeing your own art on the walls and then having somebody, you know, click onto it and buy it.
So it's like a whole new source of revenue stream coming in for artists, so that it's not only do you sell your art in the physical space now, but it's also you sell your art in the virtual world too.
Right.
So it's combining that together. And actually, I do have an interesting stat for you, Stacy, that 50% of people that actually look at AI art actually know the difference between AI art and also human art, as in done virtually.
Wow.
So yeah, I was quite amazed about that too. So
yeah.
So let's kind of dive down that rabbit hole a little bit around the copyright side, because I actually read on the US Copyright Office, and they did a news article about a month or so ago where they said that they weren't going to basically offer copyright protection on AI generated art, only from human authorized art. And I can see you both nodding your heads over there. So Angie, I'm going to come back over to you. What's your opinion on that? And then Jared, I want to bring the question over to you as well and get your perspective on that. So Angie, do you want to just quickly answer that question? Angie, unmute again.
Great.
There we go.
Got it.
Awesome.
Gets me every time. Russell, yeah, I think when it comes to things like that, I really am against the narrative of relegating every decision to basically AI. Let's create an ecosystem where artists that are creating art out there, whether physically or virtually, actually have a way to profit from their art as well. I mean, we can continue to shove things under the rug and not face things head on. But the truth of the matter is, we have to deal with these issues with great consideration for artists in both worlds and create a safe space such that artists aren't afraid that, okay, what's the point of even doing art if everyone's going to steal my style and use it for theirs? So I think the secret is to create a really safe space, a good environment where we're all benefiting from that unique ability to be able to create art.
And Jared, I just want to get your opinion as well. What's your opinion on all this as well, quickly?
For how AI is being used to generate art for the metaverse or the copyright issue?
The copyright issue, yeah.
Yeah,
Very interested to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, with certain editations, you'll be able to copyright the art. You just got to add your little customize it a little bit, and probably over time they'll switch that up. But right now, you can still copyright. You just have to add like custom art to it, and that's one thing that we show our students. So maybe like not by default. Another thing is like certain clients that I work with that we're consulting with to help them with like content for their books or different illustrations or whatever, pretty much letting them know the same thing. So teaching them how they can edit the art that's being generated by AI to further copyright it.
Okay, that's really interesting. Like I said, I'm not heavily in the copyright side, so I mean, even I'm learning here, you know, like so. And Paul, so I don't have a clue what's going over in Africa, so I would like to hear how Africa is kind of solving this problem from your country's point of view, with the copyright issues and AI, etc.
You know, we actually don't do countries. We actually to go continental, because first of all, even when we talk about the metaverse, when I stepped in the metaverse back in 2016, there was no African. Everywhere I go, people were shocked that I'm calling in from Africa. In fact, I had to do a lot of video verification to prove that I'm in Africa. So people were like, I'll call you after this to confirm that you're in Africa. So it was very much underrepresented. But in regards to the artificial intelligence, I actually don't call it artificial intelligence. It's human extended intelligence, because it was created by humans. And it is for us to bring in the ethical, algorithms that will, guide this AI and deep learning to, project any item or any generated, whether it is an art, whether it is music, without being biased on what human beings tend to present in terms of ethical levels. But we do have barriers, and we do have a lot of shortage in terms of representation. And I'll give you a very good and simple example. I'm wearing an African headdress. In my tribe, this represents a particular level of, the coming of age of a man. But when I enter the metaverse, I have not represented, avatar clothing that I can wear to show that I'm really an African. So I have to generate my avatar clothing using AI, so that my avatar can be well represented with who I want to represent myself to be. So, by the way, as in regard to selling the art in the metaverse, whether it is generated or whether it is human created content, we tried that. And when we made a metaverse event, what we did is, and what I realized is, well, many people know the commercially, world-renowned artists, but what about that budding artist out there in remote areas whose work has never even been seen, leave alone continentally or internationally, has never even been seen in their own region? And it is beautiful art, and the artist is struggling to break through. So what we did is, during our metaverse events, we would take snapshots of those art, and during the event we are like, look, hey guys, would you look at this art? And we were not even trying to sell them. We were trying to have the audience say whether it is good art or whether somebody can be able to improve it a little bit. But we didn't end up having that. We ended up having customers buying the art, and we ended up giving the dollars back to the village artists who are down there. So we thought that was a very ethical way of using the metaverse. And yeah, in regards to AI, whether someone is putting text prompts to produce a theme, we know very well, till today, we have to admit the fact that handcrafted vehicles sell more than robot commercially built assembled vehicles. So the same goes to art. The artist who is toiling with paint and wearing gowns that are, made dirty with paints from morning to evening, their art will have to sell more. And that would be, I think, as ethical way to represent the human mind in regards to art.
I 100% agree with all of that. Like, I mean, you couldn't have said it better. Like, I mean, And in regards to kind of like the copyright side, and just to kind of bring it to back to the copyright discussion, the likes of DALL-E, ChatGPT, Google Bard, all these AI generative art creations, they're all being sued right now by artists, actors, writers, etc., because they're using all copyrighted content from the internet to generate their images, to generate their text, etc. And it's crazy. Like, it's literally the most craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, and we're living through an absolute crazy time. So yeah, like I honestly, I can't believe it. But anyway, I want to move this discussion on back to the ethical discussion. So, for example, what are like ethical considerations to consider when using AI to create the art in the metaverse? And I want to hand this over to you, Jens, because you're the guy that's been here longest. So go away, take it away.
I don't really know whether I'm here longest. What happened when I was a child or younger, I had a huge, let's say, gift of getting a camera into my hand. And whatever I did back then was just through that camera I had at that moment. And whatever I created or was channeling to create was through that camera. Then it expanded into sculpture. And then I took wires and just worked with wires. I have the notion that the best way to go about it is actually forgetting a tiny little bit what we have available from the internet, and really start to take a deep look at nature and what surrounds us. And if we have the possibility to capture it with cameras or with even drawing it, then you have your own image. And if you look for further inspiration, if you would be in need of that, and then send that image into AI, that would be then a way of even outsmarting the whole copyright thing. I mean, I've been asked to work on a painting of Picasso, and I kind of I didn't really felt like it. I felt like I'm taking from someone who has been incredibly established in the art world and has been selling this. What do I have to say about this? So, and it has AI. I send in my own image if I have the possibility to do that. So I would rather go the way, how can we empower, as Paul said, this empowering of the community, of the artist community, to actually create their own images and then eventually send it out there, and with extended human intelligence, Paul, not artificial intelligence, parent those algorithms with where we see the love happening, the passion happening. It's really an easy catch to take an image from the internet and send it into and not caring about my take on it. We should empower each other to really go out there and find beauty and parent this extended human intelligence with beauty and love. I know this is a bit not very grounded opinion. I know that, but and there might be people saying, yes, you're in the clouds, but yeah, I like to connect to the clouds because that's really where I see my passion is just flowing there, in that way, and that's how I feel I'm most communicated with this technological development. Let's say it's still human and it's still reality. VR is still reality. It's a reality. That's the thing. But yeah, let's start with things we have available and play with it, and you get the gist.
I love it. And the fact is, like you said, the virtual reality and metaverse, etc., they're just different experiences on top of what the real world is, except just a virtual experience instead. So it's still human controlled, like you said, but it's still. I mean, and as Chris said as well, Christopher said, it's still in its early stages. Like, it's not developed, it's not ready yet, and until it gets fully developed and it is fully ready, we aren't going to see like what this whole one world of metaverse is going to be and look like. Is it going to be one world? Is it going to be multiple different worlds? Is it going to be loads of mini worlds? We don't know. We don't know what the future is. And AI experts are even saying that these 4 AI experts, they basically said that they don't think that AI is going to overtake human, and it's always going to be under human control. Obviously, that's debatable. But we don't know what the future is. All we can do is focus on the moment now and have discussions around this now. So I love your point of view, Jens, and being a completely different point of view and bringing that to the table for us. So that's awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to welcome Stacy into the conversation because I know you have loads over there. I can see you jotting down notes and right away. So Stacy, take it away. Whatever you want to talk about.
I think that we have to mourn for the world that was. And we have to accept the change that is. And people have a hard time with change and uncertainty. And Jan Karski, who was a Polish resistance fighter, said, humans have the infinite capacity to do good and the infinite capacity to do evil. So this is not about the technology. This is about us. And that's why I like being here in Christopher's mission, because we are in charge of this future. We can create worlds inside the metaverse that are not violent. We can promote art and for peace. So it's up to us. And again, like I've been thinking a lot about mourning, because with COVID and the election and AI, it's like too much. People are just overwhelmed. And so I think there's this kind of, I notice people walking around kind of just not even knowing which way to go. And in this early version of the metaverse and with AI, again, people are like, tell me what to do. So I think that we have the potential to really create a beautiful world. And I love what Jen said about nature and beauty, and have like people who can't access this information because they're incarcerated or they're incapacitated have access to this, right? So that gives, it's democratized, that whole idea of democratizing access. So I think my words are just like, let's mourn for what was and move forward with what could be.
100%. I agree with that so much. And Jared, this also comes back to education as well, right? I mean, we all need to become educated on it. We all need to understand it, etc. So, Jared, from an education point of view, and I know you're helping a lot of people over there, how do you kind of handle the education side and educating kids on, the metaverse and AI and everything that's going on? Like Stacy said, it's a crazy world.
Yeah, so we have different programs that we offer to the students. Some we have just like one-day workshops. So we have like cybersecurity programs where we talk more about just the risks, the pros and cons with that. Some stuff is just like a digital AI art program where we don't really focus on like some of the serious issues within the cybersecurity program, but just more so the art itself. So based off the program that the student wants to sign up for, then we'll pretty much tailor information towards that. And in regards to like some of the ethical considerations, because AI child pornography is something right now that's not illegal to create or to sell or to stream. So ownership and copyright, authenticity, transparency, bias, and representation, I think are like some of the 4 things that we need to consider as far as when we're talking about ethics moving forward for Web3. But based off really the program that they enter, that's what we teach them. But the cybersecurity program, that's where we partner with like different FBI agents, law enforcement, hackers who then got locked up and stuff like that, who didn't learn their lesson, just to try to give different angles to teach the kids. And when it comes to the child sex trafficking stuff, that's just more so like something that our College.io trauma program helped us with, because we can't prevent that, but at least we can raise awareness to try to teach these students and parents how to move more cautious. And that's something that's very popular in St. Louis right now for a long time. So I haven't really done too much like far as like rescuing kids or finding some. We found a few deceased kids buried through searching for other people, but the most right now is I could just educate them and let them know the information. But you know, some of that stuff can get overwhelming. You know, a lot of kids don't really be like all on the dark net. They be more like at the amusement parks and in the fun places. So we try to highlight not just like the quote unquote the next door neighbor, the creeps, but sometimes some of these laws as well, like the SB 145 bill. I ain't gonna go too deep into that. I spoke on it on the Legal and Governance GatherVerse, but some of these laws and bills that's being passed is making it easier for some of these criminals to not have to suffer once they get caught. And y'all can learn more about the SB 145 bill, but yeah, I just try to cover it all. And when I bring my partners in, they talk more about the serious stuff.
Got you. I mean, what you're doing, Jared, is incredible. All I can say is thank you. You know, I think what you're doing is amazing, and just, you know, keep educating and keep helping, because I think, yeah, I just humbled by, you know, what you're doing over there. So yeah, I don't even know what to say, to be honest. But
I ain't nothing to say. That's a pretty serious situation, and I wish that's stemming back from even slavery with us. It's not nothing new. My problem that I'm trying to solve when it comes to Web3 and blockchain is trying to have some type of governance where we don't have when we're talking about a decentralized network that's irreversible, that's censorship resistant, when we're talking about unlawful content, not just child sexual exploitation, it could be illegal purchases, terroristic messages, not just trademark and copyright, those more mild issues. So that's something serious right now.
That's crazy.
You know, we can't do nothing about it. So it's like, as we building it up, like Stacy was saying, we gonna do the right thing with it, but the majority of people that's using blockchain and cryptocurrencies using it for bad purposes.
Yeah, I've seen so much rug pulling, scamming, and as we said on the music panel yesterday, you know, AI is basically a tool, and it's like a hammer. You know, you could either use it for good to knock down, or use it bad, you know, to knock down buildings, or use it for good where you can actually build buildings. So
there you go.
Yeah. So I want to bring Paul into this conversation, because I'm sure you have a few things to say. So Paul, my question for you is, obviously you did your event inside the Metaverse. How is AI influencing the art market, especially in the Metaverse side of things? What's your opinion on that side of things?
Well, from an African perspective, there are barriers. First of all, we have technological barriers down here. We have got connectivity barriers down here. You do realize that probably I'm the only one who may keep popping, you know, on and off in this, panel because of connectivity issues. Sometimes even we have electricity issues. So we haven't even yet overcome the basic human needs. So for us to talk about the satisfactory, you know, availability of extended human intelligence, the one I don't want to call artificial intelligence, because it also needs tools to work with. It needs servers, it needs computers, it needs handheld devices for you to access AI. So in the issue of talking about democratizing, like Stacy said, it's an issue that we are still dealing with. And what we did is we became the meta clause. You know, I don't want to say Santa Claus, and we said ho ho ho, and we told the African village grassroots leaders, we are not going to sell you these gadgets. We are going to provide them to you for free. And part of, you know, providing that accessibility, Africa VR Campus will be looking towards building campuses maybe across remote African regions, so that people can come to those hubs, young people can come to those hubs and learn what AI is. And I want to give a little example with that, just to brag a little bit on the successes of what this campaign has enabled us to do. So it was December last year, it was the December last year, And a Gauss Team Institute in the US approached that and asked us, hey, we have a Metaverse competition. Do you think you can get us Gauss between the ages of 14 to 18 and get them to come and compete with their peers across the world? And I was thinking, you're talking about Gauss, and I'm in remote Africa. Those Gauss don't even know what emails are. And I have 3 months to not only teach them what an email is, accelerated running to teach them what the Metaverse is and what creating with AI is. But guess what? They did it. And they won their best, they won the social impact award. And they are competing against girls in UK and USA, whom I might say, forgive me for saying this, Stacy, they are born with a mouse and stylus in their hands. What about our girls are born with a cooking spoon in their hand? And Angie, I'm sure will agree with me on that. But they won. And so I think the whole issue here is when it comes to a continent like Africa, and I want also to sympathize with people who are, for example, in the Palestine, because we read the news and we see that we are not the only defranchised community. There are other communities that have no access. How about the Eskimos in the Antarctica? Do they have these accesses? I want to know that, so that as we talk about the use of these tools, we want to see what everyone has to say about, the creating with AI. I want to see the African in East Africa or West Africa or South Africa. I want to see.
I think your audio's gone. Yeah, you dropped. But no, yeah. I mean, go ahead, Jens, if you want to jump in.
Well, that was really powerful. That was incredibly powerful, because I spent some time in Mexico, and as a Swiss guy coming from a very regulated society, having had the experience for 14 years to see poverty and underprivileged people from villages not having access, but then getting their hands on a creative process or a technological process, and then winning, because their creativity is unbiased. They are coming from they're connected. That's I don't know how to phrase this differently, but I never went to art school, for instance, and I think that speaks a bit to what Paul was mentioning, that the people that don't get proper education, long university education, and come from places that are really rudimentary, they have way more creative impulses that solve problems. And yeah, Paul, amazing what you just brought to the table. I think that's exactly where we have to emphasize our educational efforts. Let's say, it's not years and years education. No, let's have them understand just the principles, what they can do with this. With these new technologies, and then guide them, parent them. The same happens with AI. We have to parent AI or this extended intelligence. So that,
I mean, like, yeah, I don't even know what to say to that, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I can speak from a personal perspective as well, and I can relate to, how just to me personally, when I see art, in a gallery that's actually done by a person and physically there, and they spent days, weeks, months creating that, I think that's absolutely amazing and beautiful. And then when I see digital art, sometimes I'm a bit like, oh, I mean, it kind of took you like a couple seconds to make that, but in actual fact, there still is a creative process behind that, where you still have to describe exactly what you want. And yeah, I think that's, there's still so much creativity in AI. But again, like, is it the same as physical? I mean, it's debatable, right? Like there's a place here in London called W1 Creates, which is actually dedicated to digitize AI art. That's literally all they do there. So anyone who like comes to London and wants to like show off their AI art, they come to W1 and that venue has done so many awesome showcases for all different artists around the world and helped, you know, promote them and everything. So yeah. So anyway, moving on with the discussion. So what the bottom line is, can AI help in making art more accessible and interactive? Because we've talked about the accessibility side, of course, with the technology. We've spoken about the education side, but as you know, AI and metaverse as a whole, can that still provide more accessibility and interactiveness across the world? So I'm going to hand this over to you, Angie, on what you think from that point of view.
Okay, thank you, Russell. I think it can. Why? Because it offers us a space where we can basically collaborate with each other. How can it create that accessibility and also the immersive experience, that interactive experience? Is think of a world where Paul's African hat is now incorporated into Jen's crystal ball painting. Now we're talking about basically cross-cultural collaboration. And that for me is actually access that can be brought about by the metaverse, by AI and using AI tools. Just a few days ago, historians were discovering that a generative AI can actually be used to translate, Arcadian language. That's something from like 5,000 years ago. That is the kind of accessibility that it can create. That when we're now in the metaverse, we can literally understand each other's languages. Imagine me today talking to a local Aborigine and I can actually interpret what they're saying, and they could vice versa interpret my native African language. So, in terms of accessibility, I'm thinking, and also immersive experiences, I'm thinking that the accessibility that metaverse and AI tools can give us is that cross-cultural, that integration of the way that we express ourselves in terms of art. Yeah.
Stacy, I mean, you was nodding your head throughout that, so I'm going to hand this over to you.
Yeah, Angie, I love that. I love that whole cross-cultural component. And it's also more, to me, around no borders. And also no one's in charge. So no one can tell us that we can't or can go into a particular space, right? And that's so important, because now with everything that's happening and everyone trying to be less global, I think that the metaverse does offer that. Again, it's an effort on the part of people like us to make sure that there's peace and goodwill inside there. But I love the cross-cultural component, the no borders, and it's kind of like the United Nations for art is just something that I really, really am excited about. And just seeing all of you and being part of this and knowing that everyone around the world is working on this and that we're doing it together across borders totally makes my day.
And I'm just gonna kind of go more in depth on the cultural side, because before I came on to here, I was actually reading an article and they were saying about how AI was going to make cultural images boring, which I thought was a very weird and interesting perspective. I didn't read the whole article because I'm like, how's that possible? So I was like, yeah, let's skip past that one. But I mean, like, I just don't see how that could be possible, because I think the cross-cultural thing that you were saying, Angie, is really awesome. Like, I think that's the future, and the no border crossing. And Jared, you was going nodding your head throughout what Angie and Stacy were saying. So please do chip in on this as well.
No, I was just agreeing with everything that they were saying. I love it. Yeah, I think being able to create art in real time based off user interactions is like priceless. I know we'll be closing soon, but if I could squeeze it in, we recently just closed a new partnership with Aldi's. They had cut a check to us for our food program. So we'll be launching like a few suicide prevention events soon and using like healthy food AI art to try to even raise more awareness and stuff. Like, I love it. I love it. I think what Jen was saying too, though, you know, connecting with real artists and stuff like that. I'm always inspired to like learn, like, because it's just prompts for us, but for them, it's actual talent and they have actual vision and stuff. So we can only see as far as like where these AI platforms are taking us, but they can take us in a whole new realm and things like that. So I just try to customize mine. But yeah, being able to create art that's personalized to the user experience in real time, I think is something new and very exciting. And we shouldn't try to put pressure on like real artists to keep up with that type of volume, because it's a lot of content that's needed for that.
100%. And one thing that I'm just going to jump on this too. One thing that I've noticed when you know, generated art and generated music, etc. I mean, for example, on the music panel yesterday, I was saying about how there's this AI generated music group of 4 individuals where they're completely AI generated, and they had like over 20 million streams on Spotify, and they basically got all the revenue from that into the tech company rather than the creators getting that money, which is a debate that I think creators should be getting that money, not tech companies. So yeah, I mean, so anyway, I do want to kind of just jump onto this last question because I want to get all your opinions on this quickly. So how do you envision the future of AI? And who wants to jump in on this? Put your hand up, just say me, and whoever wants to jump in this first, you can jump. I'll tell you what, Stacy, you take it away. Go on, Stacy, you can do it.
How do I envision the future of AI?
Yeah, what's your personal thoughts on the future of AI? Where do you think that it's going to go? Do you think it's going to get better, get worse? Is it going to be make things more accessible, not accessible? What's just your personal opinion on the future of it?
I think it will be all of those things, right? And nothing is a linear journey, and I think we're going to have to go backwards to go forward. You know, there are many doomsday people who say that the world will end, and there are many who say that's overstated. So I don't think we really know. I think it's just up to us, people like us who actually are doing this for good, to dictate the future. Being in DC, you know, we've gone and spoken to a few different senators about humane AI, and people are listening. So I think if, you know, regulations are in place, that we have the chance, but at the same time, I guess the answer is, I don't know.
Or as my friend says,
never say that. But
as my friend says, you know, he doesn't have a crystal ball. So, but yeah, does anyone want to put their personal opinion on the future, what they think the future might be? Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, I believe that I try to make my little notes down. Let me check them. Okay. So I believe that for now, of course, we're doing like the prompts, but I believe in the future, who knows, like Stacy said, but maybe some of these AI algorithms will become artists themselves, replacing humans to even use prompts. So I'm interested to see if that can ever happen.
Interesting perspective. Go ahead, Angie.
Well, for me, I'm envisioning AI-assisted artist tools. I mean, if you dig down in history, going back in African history, we literally have artifacts that were used to make art. So I'm thinking, going way forward, you'll probably have, you know, AI-assisted, literally physical tools that make art. Yeah.
Okay, I just got to quickly jump in because we're about to run out of time. So I just want quickly everyone to say, you know, basically any sort of promotional stuff, or, you know, where people can find you or add you on LinkedIn, etc. We'll just quickly go around, and then, you know, you can say whatever you want to, and then we'll finish up. So Angie, I'm going to start with you. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, or, you know, any sort of promotional stuff you want to say quickly?
I'm on LinkedIn, very active on LinkedIn, and you can just search for Bonolo Angie. All the best in trying to spell that. That's BONOLO Angie. And also, please check out the African Center for AI, Generative AI. This is where we're empowering fellow Africans with information to do with generative AI, because we're really trying to build up the awareness and education aspect. So I think that that's it for me. Thank you so much, everyone.
Over to you, Stacey.
Hey, everybody. So yes, I'm also active on LinkedIn, doing a bunch of different things, but really want to heavily promote our theater, where you're going to be seeing me live on stage in early 2024, but also a lot more VR created content. So yeah, check me out. And I always answer people's messages. So happy to have a discussion with anyone. Thank you.
Over to you, Jared.
So you all can find me as well on LinkedIn. One thing I want to promote is our latest partnership with Aldi's. I've been over the last 10 years dedicated to try to help feed homeless families and as well as kids. So for any kids out there who may be in need of food resources, definitely reach out to me, or have like the legal guardian reach out to me via LinkedIn. And then we could talk further more about our digital art program. And shout out to Chris for including me on the GatherVerse again this year.
And Jens?
Yes, same. I'm on LinkedIn. I have a personal webpage, jensschool.com. I would also like to say that I'm aspiring to be a regular with all you lovely people and savvy people here on GatherVerse. I think GatherVerse has every month something to really dip into. And I would also like to I don't know whether I can call this promotion, but say that I'm planning on launching an app which is called Octagon, and it has to do with 8 trusting friends that will really connect and with the power of AI get to an interconnection that is trust-based, and this Octagon will then go further into other networks of trust. So you will hear more about that definitely on GatherVerse.
Awesome, Jens. Thank you. And over to you, Paul. Where can people find you? We can't hear you, Paul. Oh. And everyone, you can find me on LinkedIn. It is Russell Bundy. And if you wonder what I do, I am the CEO of Madbot, which is an NFT music platform where we help women creators, empower women creators to help sell their music, create new forms of revenue. Everything in Web3 we help them with. So I'm out of time. Thank you so much for the panel. Thank you, everyone. And make sure you add everyone on LinkedIn. And Christopher, over to you. Bye.
What a powerful experience of expression, the power of art. AI. How relevant are those two? What does that look like in the future to come? Art isn't something that's always readily available to be understood by the beholder, but it has great intention from the giver. We have another example of expression coming up now with Norma Pickman, who has created an art piece that was made for us, a part of the Norma vision, her introspection of the metaverse. Join us for these few minutes as we play this display that she has put together, this abstract but concrete in her mind vision of today and the future. Do enjoy.
began in 1997. So when my first son was born, but it's somehow always it works in different places, like especially in historic places. So with the symmetry, with the content, and here is very beautiful because this garden in Orange is really nicely concept and entertaining. So it's Hi, I'm the son of a mathematician, resident Kunst and artist, painter and sculptor. And so I will present you actual physical exhibition of Norwegian solar at the Garden of Eden, paintings on solar panels. So here we go. I will start with this painting of Radogrida.
Vision Solar, which includes the central presentation of oil paintings on solar panels, partly graphics and sculptures from previous periods. This is in dialogue with the permanent castle exhibition of 2 border rooms. Valvasor's book of graphics from the Theatre Mortis Humanae Tripartitum cycle, the adjacent hunting room with a bear. Vision Solar Metaverse, the Garden of Eden is a sustainable project involving the painting of decommissioned solar panels. Thus, upcycling the waste object itself and adhering to the principles of the circular economy. The project utilizes both traditional oil and mixed painting techniques, with applications of gold and silver imitations. It was initiated in 2018 as Vision Solar in collaboration with Mr. Gregor Novak and the electricity distribution company Suncontract, and later received support from the Slovenian solar panel manufacturer Basal. The project envisions the integration of painted modules into larger public spaces such as airports, tunnels, and subways on the one hand, static model, and the organization of public auctions and broader involvement of other artists, as well as experts and the general public. On the other, a more detailed presentation of the project can be found on the website https://Noravision. EU, the 21st of September 2021, Noravision Solar. Including research by the International Renewable Energy Agency. If solar panels are so clean, why do they produce so much toxic waste? Solar energy systems, solar power plants do not cause air, water, or greenhouse gas pollution. Use of solar energy have a positive impact on the environment. Solar energy replaces or reduces the use of other energy sources that pollute the environment. However, the production of photovoltaic PV cells, which converts sunlight into electricity, uses some toxic substances such as Vision Solar Metaverse, the Garden of Eden, Valvasor Dialogues, and the Glory of the Duchy of Carniola. Homage a Agnes Sorrel and other interlacements of personal and historical stories are linking our past and future. Old and contemporary techniques. The artist has been sustainable approach with a vision to make visits to people and art to general public more accessible.
The project was initially
Norma de
supported by
Saint-Picman, An
resulting in
intermedia
the creation of the
Gesamtkunstwerk
first painted
NFT artist
assemblage,
is
the
taking us to a
diptych, son
voyage
of
in the
Ming.
past and future.
Blockchain Lady,
With her
a
sustainable
panel made
approach
using
to expose a
sandblasted
series
glass
of
technique,
paintings on the
which
solar
was placed
panels.
in the company's new business
Ceramic and
premises at
polyester
Milan.
sculptures in
The
castles, digital twin galleries,
NORAVISIONSOLAR
linking personal stories and
has been a
cultural
work in
heritage.
progress for several
Salve
years.
Regina.
With
The
60
choral
panels
sang by
realized
knights
out
and
of
the image of
100,
Virgin with the Child.
the sustainable idea of
Hope and light
connecting the
towards
circular
graphics
principle
from the
of
Theatrum
upcycling.
Mortis Humanae
Use of
Tripartitum
discarded solar
cycle.
panels linked to
Beside most
raising
recent
awareness
painting
about
series T,
concentrated
some
sources
past
of solar
surrealist
energy.
graphics from Paris
Creation
period
of
are
larger
exposed.
production centers.
To
As can be
accentuate
seen
a
in the
parallel
case of Hilton
B-lean
in
old graphic
Liechtenstein.
studio production
Historically
presented
and
in the other
thematically,
tower of the castle.
Vision Solar represents
Shortly
homage
after
to
marrying
plain
Anna
Japanese
Rosina
silk,
Grafenweger in
classical oil
1672,
technique, with an impressionistic
Valvazor
and
acquired the
expressive
castle of
gestural approach, combined with thick and transparent layers, a bridge to the latest technologies and trends. The paintings are created within the framework of classical artistic approaches, depicting blooming or urban landscapes, vistas, marinas, floral still lives, and portraits, capturing ephemeral light changes, the transience of spring flowers, blooming trees, autumn leaves, reflections of light on the sea, mirrored reflections of palaces, nocturnal views of Venice and the flooded San Marco, Christmas in Ljubljana, reflections in the Ljubljanica River, portraits incorporating documentary sources of historical memory, Prince Nicolaus and Princess Margareta von Liechtenstein, Darko Brelich, Milan Crunch, Giuseppe Bellardo, Adrian Berengo, a double portrait with Darrett Stoyan, Queen Elizabeth in her youth, Ksenia and Rado Reimer, David Michigan as Jesus with Doubting Thomas, and Valvazor himself. The historical element is adopted and transformed, as well as the working method in an expressive and impressionistic approach with bold and swift strokes.
Another element to be taken into consideration is the element of ready-made. Back to pop art and Marcel Duchamp's solar panel. Taken from its primarily use as conductor and transmitter of energy of sun to electricity. The role is quite parallel, as now, the creative initiative power of an author creating a painting is emanating from the panel towards a spectator, creating in his brain and body-specific response. There are two big triptych paintings exposed, linked to the story about author's dad, professor of mathematics and quantum physics Dr. Lavrink Pickman. The first is depicting Rado Reiber, the owner of Stramal Castle, in the forest, sitting on his luxuries car with his dog and a gun directed towards him. Between Night and Day was a multidisciplinary event by Norma in September 2022. Initially inspired by well-known Slovenian writer Drago Jenkar's novel. Documentary photos of the Reiber family are interwoven with the artist's personal history and that of her family. The artist reading literary excerpts mixed with piano improvisations performed in the piano salon of the Stramal Castle. The rich historical scenario of the event starting in the Golden Salon, equipped with the luster of Murano glass, a splendid mirror, and Titian's copy. Opening started singing of old Slovenian song, Kaj ti že deklika. Quote. Loved by the heroine of the novel. The four paintings, three portraits of the couple Ksenia, Rado, double portrait and the triptych, The Shoot, were installed in the outside green lobby of the Stramal Castle.
Studio building. Now found the physical equivalent in reality. On the west side of the same house. The symbol of a gun. So frequently present on the each of our photos has been symbolically manifested through my family's past. In a way that nobody could have ever imagined. The second triptych is a continuation of the Between Night and Day series. Triptych. 3 figures. There are 2 dialogues present in this Between Night and Day second painting. Between young lady reminding Botticelli's Primavera or angels in the birth of Venus, bringing a bouquet of bursting forsythia to a man waiting on a bench. Another dialogue is between women lying on the floor, on the left side on the grass, violets and river fur covering all together, transparent and fluent. The old man. absorbed in his ultimate decision and departure, is calm but lonely, loved but absent, in his central position still balancing the entire composition. Father is balance and mother is Aquarius. The other bouquet of yellow lilies, another center, another sun. The lace covering the body of Primavera was inspired by a lace of a lady portrayed in a room transiting to the exhibition. Another dialogue with the permanent castle exhibition of 2 border rooms. Balthazar's book of graphics from the Theatre Mortis Unity Tripartite Cycle. Death and transition often associated with cruelty and force. Flowers, those ephemeral beings, are associated with the notion of passing time. Depictions of vanity as still lifes. The Garden of Eden and rebirth through ever-rejuvenating burst of spring and blissful smells of flowers and others depictions presented. Botanical flowers of Maria von Auersperg in the arcade's passage towards working studio originated from the National Gallery. The adjacent hunting room with a bear. Bear roaring into the wild. A girl roaring from terror and grief.
What a powerful display of art. And here we arrive at our final discussion today, a very brief summit of Fathom. Today we have Bob Sopko and Devin Baldwin to come and join us, and we may be joined by a few others as well. We're having a bit of reception problems. As I say again, we believe that the metaverse and emerging technologies has fully arrived, but the reality is that we're still having issues with broadband, and maybe that Starlink will be a bit helpful in the near coming future. But until then, Bob and Devin, I want you to introduce yourselves and what you're working on, and then we'll begin. Please, Bob, we'll start with you. You're to my right.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. Been watching GatherVerse and love your little snippets of music between events, always emboldening and enlivening. So I'm at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, and my colleagues, I'm not with the group, but I was in IT for many, many years there. I've been actually at the university for 19 years. We developed the first third-party app on HoloLens called HoloAnatomy. We were very fortunate to be able to sign a very strong contract with Microsoft early, and that ended up being HoloAnatomy, free and open to the public. Then we did another version, which is now licensed to 21 universities, 1 high school, and we spun it off as a separate company. Many artists were involved in building it as well as developers. One of the interesting things is once that was developed, we moved very, very quickly into working with Boulevard of the Arts out of New York City, Cleveland Museum of Art, to bring a Cambodian exhibit, basically where people couldn't travel to Cambodia, but we replicated an exhibit there. And then we also did a dance number where we had, I think, 50 some headsets where some of the scenery was actually in augmented reality and the dancers were live on stage. So besides being, heavy science, our team just couldn't wait to get into an arts element. That's it for now, and I'll share further later.
Thanks a lot, Bob. Devin?
Hello to the both of you, and hello to the GatherVerse. My name is Devin Baldwin. I am a web XR developer and educator. I have been within the XR space technically since 2016, but recently dived in headfirst probably 2019. I got into educating through the OSD, that's the Oakland Unified, I'm sorry, OUSD, Oakland Unified School District. through contracting through STEM Tank, a program where we take basically underserved youth and provide courses and classes on technology or like digital fabrication, basically different things to get kids' hands on technology, bring them access to that type of thing. And I was able to create my own coursework and my own curriculum concerning or around what WebEx are, and I've been doing that ever since within the Bay Area, and I relish that work. I'm also a content creator and a producer, so and also artist. So I pretty much make up the fathom aspect of our conversation, giving to the tapestry of it. So.
Indeed, Devin. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bob. Audience, those that are with us with GatherVerse.live, we welcome you. And on our other various streaming social platforms, I want to lay into it, and I want to take us back. Let's go back so that we can go forward, more so to be complementary towards this discussion that we're about to dive into. When we talk about these emerging technologies and these art forms that have been rather persistent in our lives for some time, we've gone through this farming revolution. We've gone through the industrial age revolution. We entered into the 90s with what was called the information age, the extension, if you will, of the internet, this www, this World Wide Web. The thing of consideration is that, excuse me, that we get this information, we received it. And some years later, we entered into here in Silicon, which had global impact, of this bubble. This great big prolific bubble burst, meaning that technology was at such an accelerated fashion because of new information received and startups, but these startups were operating like industrial age platforms. And technology in the industry itself, horizontal, had to render itself and get itself atop on its own feet, which ultimately led us into two things that came up: the Great Recession, in particular here in North America, that had global impact and ramification, but also it entered us into the applications renaissance. iPhone, a man named Steve Jobs came on the stage in 2007, September, and said, "Hey, I have this device and it has a thing with applications in it." And we became more familiar with applications. Applications weren't new. They just began to emerge, and then Android and other different platforms followed suit. Excuse me. Going into the applications renaissance, which helped bootstrap, if you will, the global economy, once these applications were created based on the information that was distributed in the 90s and platforms to be able to allow us to receive this information, we began to create these applications. And once these applications came out, that gave us empowerment towards developing more tools, birthed and created and fashioned out of applied sciences, inspired by the arts. Now that's led us into the greatest disruptive period of our time, contemporary to our time. The greatest disruptor being not technology, but the pandemic itself, COVID-19, if you will, where we become more virtual in the past 39 months than we had the past 39 years. We've seen prolific rise of technologies within the eco-habitat of NFTs and crypto assets, blockchain technology, on-chain, off-chain. We've seen this metaverse, this virtual ecosystem of interaction and communication come on the scene. Now we see generative pre-trained transformers that have arrived. And so here we are, right now, coming from the heels of November 2022, when we first saw this type of ChatGPT arrive in this capacity, not to mention a DALL-E and Midjourney, which has been expressed. But now we see these technologies that have arrived at the scene, and we're having this discussion because we know there's writer strikes that are happening. There are artist organizations and graphics artist guilds of sorts globally that are preparing for battle. Not for battle for just royalties and more pay, but battle for sustainability of their whole entire industry complex. That we have become so innovative that in some ways we've innovated ourselves. But what I want to be able to do is not talk about the ramifications and the harsh outcome renderings of what's to come. What I want to delve into in this discussion is to talk about art, design, AI, metaverse, fashion, all of the things at this intersection of humanity. Devin, I have a question for you. When we're looking at art, music, production, as someone that comes from XR, audience that's with us, meaning extended reality is this acronym. But we also have to make mention that when we talk about extended reality, we're not just talking about visualization, are we? Because AI is an extended reality from human intelligentsia itself. But really, when we talk about XR, as has been said, it's the interface of AI, but I think that's a little bit more too low. I think we need to come higher with that. But from your lens and perspective, Devin, when it comes to XR, Web XR, and what you've been building with the arts, and we'll dive into some of the things you've been doing with STEM, what are you seeing at this intersection for the arts and creativity and music with this new arrival, this recent arrival of this emergent and very persistent technology called AI?
Well, to kind of speak on what it is now, we kind of have to take a step back and say, hey, this is what it was. Well, like you said, what brought upon, all the information we got from the 90s, we went into this application era where people had to download things on their phone. People had to, if you wanted something cool, something powerful, it had to be from an application. It had to be native, if you will. Hence, as technology, WebGL got more powerful, people started really digging and diving into making these web frameworks. The technology got more powerful and more sustainable enough to bring out innovative spaces and create different type of companies that can now service the visions that you have without having to download, without having to go the native route. So for Eighth Wall, it is a great example of that. They've come a long way from when I first was introduced to them. And now their platform is servicing companies all around the world for different aspects. And they're using AI within some of those frameworks to handle mapping or certain tracking mechanisms through the camera. And that's just in one aspect. From my perspective, when we're talking about building virtual worlds from a STEM perspective, utilizing tools like Midjourney. There are also other AI music tools that I use within to create an experience. I could produce it myself, but for the sake of STEM and having kids, they necessarily don't want to take that time to produce. If they just want something quick, want some sounds that they can throw into their experience, there are certain AI applications where they can type in and ask for certain sounds. And then those sounds can be inputted, whether it's a tap or just a background music within their scene. Just utilizing certain tools like that. And then Midjourney from a content creation aspect. I may want to mock up something. I may have an idea I want to shoot out and like, you know what? Let me get this background for something. Or I may need a texture and I can type it into Midjourney and then I can use that texture for a material on a 3D model of my scene or the background, or even I could use that picture that I've generated in Midjourney to inspire me or to help guide me towards modeling something that I can put within my scene. So there are lots of different aspects of AI that, integrate very well with this web XR environment. So, yeah.
Indeed. And that would translate towards a very interesting approach to STEM that we've never seen before, doesn't it? When we talk about educating our students, we'll come back to that. Let's put a pin in that. That's a very fascinating consideration. For years, we've been talking about science and technology and engineering and mathematics, if you will, based on what almost is beginning to feel like very archaic and old tools and methodologies and ways to be able to update and accelerate education and under the banner of academia. What does these new tools mean for students? But Bob, let's dive in here when we begin to talk about art and the relatability and its impact of impression. We begin to talk about this intersection that is so finite in its availability because of the cross-pollination comparisons and the pairing of these technologies to these arts. We are still finding out what that actually looks like and what it feels like. What's the given intended interpretation therein of art presented with AI, let alone how it's being manifested within the metaverse itself. From your lens, Bob, with the work that you've been engaged in and that you're currently and presently doing, what does that look like, this weaving, if you will, this delicate dance, this engagement?
Well, as I had mentioned, our group did a deep dive in the STEM area with anatomy and physiology. Something that the human body hasn't changed in a century, right? But the way we present it to folks. So we worked with our anatomy and physiology professor, and there's a lot of artists involved in that, believe it or not. Drawing this stuff out and present it to people. And she wanted to experiment with it, but she didn't understand how it's going to change anything. But again, presenting it from an artist's eye and the way it was embedded in your brain and the novelness of an XR experience. And this is a number that is just difficult to even share because it's astronomical. It was over a 40% higher retention of the material after a few months compared to a standard group, because it was so novel and it was so vibrant, again, created by artists. And I also, within the art realm, I put developers as artists because they're creators, they're musicians, in my opinion. And then within the Cleveland Museum of Art, which is a highly respected location right next to our campus, we had a Cambodian exhibit that people don't generally travel to Cambodia, right? So we brought artifacts to the people in an AR experience, and it crushed it, absolutely crushed it. People got to see it, and I don't know if you were enticed enough to say, okay, now I want to go see the real thing, right? But again, we work with various artists and again, the broad definition of artists, developers and illustrators, things like that. The Cleveland Institute of Art and Cleveland Institute of Music are also right next door to ours, and those students also take classes with our engineering students in like English and things like that. So we definitely try to populate and cross pattern that. I'm embedded actually into a 50,000 square foot innovation space called thinkbox.case.edu, and 18% of our student employees are Cleveland Institute of Art entities. And without that art realm of it, in the physical realm and also in the digital and the metaverse realm, you've got nothing. It's like, what should I create? Now should I create it? And you've got to have a creative mind to do it.
When you're delivering Cambodia as a follow-up, what is the intention behind that?
It was an effort by the Cleveland Museum of Art. They had some Cambodian artifacts, and they've always had a strong relationship with them. And so they've been there for decades. And it's like, how can we infuse a new way to experience, besides seeing these elements that you may have seen multiple times, dusty old sculptures, things like that. How can we put them in a surrounding of what they were, centuries ago and where these may have existed, right? So to put the scenery around them, so to enhance that museum experience.
Indeed, I find that very interesting. Is that when we think about some of the intentions for AR and VR, is the idea to bring people into experiences. So part of the idea has been to bring people into experiences that they may never, have been able to experience, none of us, because it may be related to a specific time period. It could be Victorian era, it could be Edwardian era. And depending on that era, depending on what continent, there are different things happening at different times. And when I also think about the deliverance, and in particular of really telepresence, is to bring people into environments in real time, or in past time, if you will, to allow them the opportunity to experience other people's experiences and to render that out into art form. And I think about the emotional integration that involves to put that together, the human experience. And Devin, when I think about AI, we think about these platforms like Midjourney and DALL-E. Some of the designs that we see are just almost breathtaking. They're beautiful, they're incredible, they're powerful. And I just think psychologically, what happens if we do go with a majorative replacement of now contemporary arts that are distributed out, whether that's under the banner of education or STEM, if you will? What happens when these experiences don't have the native given history, right? Something that Bob just expressed, he talked about the museum. Well, museum serves as a muse for us to look and to consider, but museums also tell a story of history. We have the Topkapi Palace, the Louvre, the Tate Modern, and so many other different powerful museums across the world that really archive in some capacity humanity. And for the MoMAs of the world, if you will, they're expressing something that's so in depth of expression for us to be able to wrap our minds around, if we can, if we will, and to understand from the giver what she or he is wanting us to understand at that present moment. Devin, when we talk about STEM, and we're talking about with your students and with all the other STEM practitioners and teachers of education in the world, because this is a really big deal, when it comes to art and communication, as Bob just said, a 40% retention. That's very high. That means that there's some serious fidelity in that experience, especially when we talk about human factors relating to, in some ways, environmental fidelity and cognitive fidelity of what we're perceiving in these environments. Do you believe that the present tools of what we see with AI, specifically under art and expression, is it serving as a value add in your efforts in teaching your students? And you as the teacher, do you feel like this is the way forward in incorporating that and regimenting that into your given distribution of the material itself to your students of curriculum?
I can definitely say that it has been a useful tool. It has been something to engage them, has been something because it's relevant. They hear about it, they see it on social media, because a lot of my students are in the range of middle school to high school. So they're very much on the phone, very much social media, socially aware of what's happening. So it is a very useful kind of grab because the retention rate, that's what we're really after. So,
Right.
because normally, before I even started diving into this space, once again, for the people who don't know, and I'm just giving a little bit of context. I work in underserved communities. That means these are kids who do not have access to these tools. These are kids who are basically deemed not worthy, like, oh, they're just going to do what they're going to do. So the retention rate is already very low.
Right.
It's already very low. So, what my job is as an educator is to somehow find out how to get them engaged. And speaking to relevant topics such as AI, Midjourney, Chat, GPT, it definitely sparks their interest because they hear about it, they just don't know how to access it. So during class, I'll show them how to go through prompts on Midjourney. They'll create certain things. They'll see it. They'll get excited, And then what what I like for them to do is bring what they've prompted into the virtual space, how we spoke about earlier. But what I also don't want to do too much of, and this is just my personal bias. I'm very much about innovation, moving forward, emerging technologies, but I also don't want to innovate ourselves out of the innovation itself. And what I mean by that is using AI so much as a tool that we don't even express ourselves through our natural means. So as far as with the kids, I encourage them, please do draw, please do express yourself through the arts tangibly first before we dive into this tool that pretty much takes what you're thinking and makes it tangible. But at the same time, and once again, I'm biased because I have a lot of people in the art space here, and I'm very much for the natural artists. I'm very much for the emerging technology and for the innovation. But I like them to have have a structure and ground in art and knowing how powerful your own human expression is. We live vicariously through the experience that you create with your hands, your words, like your experience. And on an ethical level, some of these AI platforms haven't captured their experience. They don't know. Those models aren't trained on that. So you have to, in a way, figure out how you can utilize these tools to bring your experience to life. Because ultimately, that's literally what Bob did by bringing like what it was like, those artifacts, bringing them to life in their prime, seeing what it was like to be within that environment, really adhering to your senses. What did it sound like? What did it feel like? What did it smell like? Like literally, it's about creating that experience. So as far as these tools, I use them. I do think it is a very good tool moving forward. I just also feel that we need to ground them in what art is and start them with the humanity aspect of it first before we just rely on this tool.
There's several things that come to mind in expression of that, and it's both something that you and Bob have been talking about, and in great capacity of the human body, the brain, if you will. When we think about education, there's been a diminution of retention of even spelling, because spell check has become so prevalent in society, is that some people that either never knew how to spell well, know how to spell well least, and those that knew how to spell well, they've lost a little bit. There's been a bit of attrition when it comes to their capability in spelling with their studies on this. And when we think about the human brain experience and sensory, I find that very interesting. There's just so much that comes out. I was at Switzerland a few months ago at a place called Lauterbrunnen Valley in Interlaken. I recommend it for anyone that has afforded the opportunity. I'm certainly grateful to have that opportunity. But as I think about the metaverse and the incredible capability to be able to ray trace and to create these hyper-realistic immersive simulated environments, and it's only getting better, Even with that said, entering to the metaverse, it would pale in comparison to the actual experience of being in this valley of waterfall and fog formations and ghost waterfalls, or phantom falls they call it, and fields of flowers and cut grass. It would be different in experiencing that because my senses aren't involved when it comes to the metaverse. And try as we might, we're building smellorama and this and that, haptic feedback, but it's not there, and it may never be there yet within at least the next 50 years. My point in bringing this up, we talk about the anatomics, the human body. From my understanding, head cavity, chest cavity, lower abdominal cavity, our extremities. In this world of operating, we're still figuring it out. We are still experiencing new things tangibly. We taste new things periodically. We smell new things periodically, and we feel things we've never felt before, good and for bad. But now we go into this extended reality of the reality that we've known. And in some ways, Bob, I feel like maybe perhaps we've exhausted this reality that we've known all of our lives, if you will. But it seems to me with the extending reality and this augmented reality of, say, what you're working on with respect to Cambodia, these artifacts, part of the intention is for us to be able to use this technology to better appreciate this existence, as opposed to appreciating only the experience of technology that we're interacting with and that we're involved with. In other words, doesn't it seem like this technology intentionally was the means to lead us to something more about understanding this existence that we're attempting yet to still figure out? That there's still so much of a mystery to life itself, and to the world, and to the audience that's with us. We hope that you stay with us in this train of thought, as in some ways we just left the planet. Bob, what are some of your thoughts on that when we talk about the relatability of humanity into the arts?
Well, getting back to, you had a great experience visiting Switzerland and everything else, right? When photographs came out, right, people could engage at. It didn't say I never want to go there. Now I even want to go there more, right? Or seeing a film, or Chris Milk, the empathy machine, right? He
Right.
With XR or VR back in the day.
Right.
The other thing is, we've had these empathy machines, storytelling around a campfire forever, right? And people, they get scared, right? It's like somebody tells a ghost story, right? I mean, that's so typical. Kids are like, oh my gosh, I hear noises that I didn't hear before, or you leave a movie and you're crying or laughing hysterically. It touches the humanity of people, and this is another tool in that whole regard. Yes, but the thing is, it just. And we don't know yet. And I told you that tremendous increase in the retention of material. We don't know yet if that's just because it is so novel to the human brain that 5 years from now, when you've taken 10 courses, we're not going to maybe get that delta, right? Because that novelty has disappeared. I don't know. We don't know yet. So, but integrating the arts, like like I had mentioned before, it was fascinating to me because we had some amazing deliverables in a very tough area of anatomy and physiology for a new medical, dental, and nursing school we were building with the Cleveland Clinic. And then as soon as people had an opportunity, they went down to do art. And it was just like, wow, that was just fascinating. And it was kind of like a brief vacation for the mind and their ability to do stuff. And then, by doing something creative in the arts, they could then take those skills back and to do things in the science area more profoundly, right? So yeah, the whole integration, because we're human beings, not human doings, and part of the beings is experiencing all this material.
Right.
So, Devin, I had a quick question, if you don't mind. Why are you not STEAM instead of STEM?
You know what?
Talk them into it.
That's actually a pretty good point. So I only contract through STEM Tech.
Okay.
But there's nothing saying that the Da Vinci Code can't have a STEAM track.
Correct.
Because we very much dive into art a lot.
Yeah.
Whether it's the visual, the sonics of art, pretty much every facet. So I mean, that's a great question.
Absolutely. And I heard that many years ago, and it kind of like took me by surprise. And then it's not been as accepted or discussed as much as I thought it would be. And for those in the audience who don't know what we're talking about, STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, we want to incorporate art in that whole category because, and it's kind of interesting. It's kind of stuck in the middle there too, right? So it's kind of like that keystone, right? That's supporting the rest. So that's the kind of way I look at it. So thanks.
I have a question for both of you coming off the heels of that. Let's talk about it for a second. AI, and Devin, you mentioned bias as well. But if it's capable in replacing teachers, especially for, let's say, underserved and served communities, and we say, hey, because we know it, you both are firmly in education, I dive in as well, there's a lack of teachers right now. It's a big deal. But if there is a way to be able to replace teachers more abundantly and sufficiently, and let's say it comes equipped with soft skill, let's just throw that hypothetical on there as well, so it's not just hard skill development, soft skill. Is that a way to go? Is that a viable option? Or are we missing something or losing something if we attempt to replace our teachers? But at the same time, it feels like it may solve something. What are your thoughts on that?
We already are in some regards. Before, you'd have to have a good friend or mechanic, right? You're fixing something on your car. Now it's like, I'll look it up on YouTube, right? But and also in the skilled technician realm, you could put on an AR headset, and you could have that skilled technician who lives, your buddy who lives in 5 states over, be there with you and point out things. So I think it's going to multiply it, and the smart people will, take, eat from a variety of modalities of how you can learn. So go ahead, Devin.
And I agree with Bob. The smart people will smart. As far as the collaborative aspect of it, the technology is there for that purpose. It's growing, it's innovating for that purpose. But what I will say is that, like I said earlier, let's not get ourselves out of the innovation. And one thing that technology can never do is be human. It can appeal to our humanity, but it can never have that human touch. Because with my kids specifically, that concept would work for a lot of kids. But with my kids specifically, I'm doing more counseling than teaching. I'm doing more father figure counseling, mentoring than I am teaching most of the time. So when technology learns how to do that, maybe we'll have something there. Now, maybe you're on to something, but until they can truly capture that aspect of humanity and care and love, there will be no replacement for teachers, for real teachers, for mentors.
Right.
I just don't see that happening.
And we all learn when we study the classics. Are we not being taught by somebody who's not physically there, isn't even alive anymore, been dead for centuries, but yet we're learning from their words and their understanding of the universe.
Right.
Point well made. Xavier Neal, Devin, did we lose you? We may have. Okay, a little latency, but Xavier Neal, French billionaire, started a school called School 42, and there were no teachers there. It's infamous for having no teachers. 24/7 access to their students. It's all free. Tip of the hat to Mr. Neal for trying to go out and put a platform out there that did basically hard skill level up, gamified. And a lot of their students got plucked off and went to go work for these technology campuses. But the ones that were hired, they noticed that there was a sufficient amount of churn, and these kids, these young people, and were quitting because they had no soft skill development. It's all 100% hard skill. So I think, Devin, you literally here on Fathom Summit just made the case for not replacing AI for teachers, because I think we tend to forget about the power of counseling and consoling when it comes to our teachers. I think all of us that have had a good example of a teacher, it wasn't always about the lesson that was given, but it was the care in between. I just don't want to overlook that. I think that's a very powerful thing to say and to express. And this is why I believe we have to, as technologists, we need to listen more to those that will be utilizing our technology. I've been saying it for some time. I feel like with the chat GPTs of the world, the Bards, the Lambdas, they've created pots and pans, but ultimately they've distributed it to humanity and saying, we need to see what dishes that you're going to prepare and that you're going to make, because we don't have all the use cases available internally into our platforms to be able to tell you everything that you can do with this. And so the giver, the intended person to use this in the room, is not the technologist, it's not the expert, it is the person that's going to be using it more so for her or his application in whatever field that they're in. It brings us to our last question here, is that what does the future look like for this XR state of existence, both Devin and Bob? What does it look like and with this marriage pairing of AI and for our arts? And what would you like to see?
You can go back.
I mean, I'm in addition, I'm a preliminary judge at South by Southwest Pitch in the XR space, and within that regard, AI, I've been doing a few years now. AI wasn't really, it's just starting to integrate into some of the XR things. So it's still early, and we've got applications from around the world. I view it, the whole AI component as a tool. As back in the day, we crushed berries to have paint and things like that, right? But now we just don't do that anymore, right? And we use a computer for a lot of things. It's going to be another tool that you pull from, and you're going to be cautious about it. You're going to have to be thoughtful about it, and there's got to be somebody making decisions as to melding a couple different elements together to perform some task, to perform some commerce task or some societal task. The human brain is, it's just so infinitely more complex than AI can do, and then that's it. And I talked to a lot of AI people, a guy who travels the world speaking on this, and he goes, it is just so early, and we just don't know what's going to happen. But what's interesting is that, with ChatGPT and some of these other ones, how across many disciplines it is powerful, and people who are experts in those disciplines have said this is close. And the thing is, a lot of people are saying it's like ninth grade capabilities right now, not PhD type capabilities. So it'll be an interesting movement forward.
Indeed. Thank you, Bob. Devin?
And with that innovation, it'll continue to innovate. My only hope for it is that there is an ethical guideline that it will follow. What I really like is I'm a part of the XR Guild, and a lot of what we do, a lot of what we talk about revolves around the ethics around XR in the virtual space in the metaverse. So I hope that there will be able to be some guidelines to be followed. For example, we don't want to end up like the Kryptonians. The Kryptonians put all their faith in, they put all their faith in, dang, I just had it and I lost my train of thought. Kryptonians, I was being a nerd for a sec and my nerd failed. Okay.
And there it went.
Waiting on the thing because it was so snappy. It was awesome. And I totally jinxed it.
Some things aren't. Some things aren't meant to be said, obviously.
Some things aren't meant to be said. But all in all, what it is just, for me, I know the technology is getting better. What I've seen so far has been incredible, incredibly scary as well. And just ethically, there just needs to be guidelines, and hopefully those can be followed and adhered to. Otherwise, it can go either way. It can go drastically great, and we get pushed into a utopian society, or it could be drastically terrible, and we go to a dystopian society. But like I said, the Kryptonians put all their faith in Brainiac, and Brainiac ended up being their undoing because he knew that Krypton was going to explode, but wanted to save himself and kill off the whole race. Luckily, Superman was able to survive. But that's the example I was trying to use earlier, but I forgot Brainiac's name.
It's a very powerful example, and it's very authentic, relatable. But I tell you what, with how uncertain the future is, it certainly is better with you both and others in the GatherVerse community involved. Thank you, Devin Baldwin and Bob Subko, for your time.
Thank you both.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for the invite.
Yes, take care. And audience, that leaves us at our conclusion for Fathom Summit Day 2, 2023. Put this one in the books. When we talk about the relevancy of these technologies in humanity, I know this may seem just like another event where we talk about technology. We must take in consideration how we spend our time and what we do with the time given and what we'll hand down to generations to come. We, together, only have so much of this to do together. And before you know it, generations, if you will take our place. What are we handing down to them? Money's not going to cut it. Innovation can only do so much if it's not met with intended capacity for human sustainability. We do this at GatherVerse, and we'll continue to do this at GatherVerse, to meet at this intersection because it's necessary, because it's needed, and because we care. And we are not alone. That's evident by all of you that turned out for day 1 and day 2, that turns out for all of our events. We cannot do this without you.
We don't want to do this without you. We do this together or we don't do it at all. We want to thank each of our speakers for spending time with us, time that they'll never get back, because time is precious, and every moment is precious. We'd like to thank all of you that attended that didn't speak, but gave a little bit of your time to share for us. We hope that something was given that you can take and share with others, but more importantly, that you can live. Live these experiences. Be the change. Tell a friend. Take screenshots. Share the story. Let them know what's happened here. In this great big planet of so many things happening all at once. To know that there was a time where we had an event platform called GatherVerse, where we assembled humanity together to amplify, to express. And in these moments, and then till next time, may our gather be well. Thank you.